I guess one of the interesting points of departure would be just be briefly reflect on the election, which to my mind was an object lesson in pointlessness to an extent, insofar that the major issues that should have been discussed weren't discussed. We saw that in the ABC leak this week, where the treasurer now has to recognise the fact that we've got big issues with the budget. We've got big issues with the 1.2 million, which is never going to go be achieved in terms of housing. So at one level, it seemed to me that we had a bit of a false campaign on some very superficial issues. The other issue I've got is that the major parties were sort of chucking bricks at each other, but there was very little coverage, broader coverage that there should have been on some of the other parties and some of the other issues. And I know that you found that particularly difficult.
Well, the latter certainly. Like that was, and I'm not speaking my own book here. Um, this was an election where, for the first time ever in history, the over one third of Australians voted against the two major parties. So it was 33.6% voted against the two major parties. Yet the mainstream media coverage of the election was like a US presidential election.
Yep.
Dutton versus Albo. That's it. That's all people saw. As if that other reality didn't exist. Now, thanks to the bizarre features of our preferential voting system, Albanese ends up with this monster majority. It's the biggest Labor caucus in Australian political history now in Parliament. Absolutely monster majority, but it's on 34% of the vote. Right. Back in 1983, Bob Hawke won what was considered a big majority then of 82 or 83 seats. I can't remember. On 49.6% of the vote, as close to 50 as you'll get. Albanese got 34% of the vote in this election, yet he ends up with this monster majority. And it just reinforced the media's perception they can get away with covering elections like this. And why was there over 33% of the vote against the two major parties? Precisely because of what you just said. There were issues, fundamental issues affecting the country that the two major parties were not addressing. Right? That's why people are voting away from the two major parties. And it will continue to grow. What's the big one? The cancer that's at the heart of our economy, called the housing market, right? It's a cancer. It is not supporting, it is not growth that is supporting the economy. It is eating away at the economy.